Timmy's small hands clutched the tattered leather ball, his breath visible in the crisp morning air. He kicked it ahead, watching it roll into the dense underbrush at the edge of the forest. With a giggle, he raced after it, his laughter ringing through the stillness of the early dawn. The day was just beginning in the sleepy town of Oak Ridge, where nothing of importance ever seemed to happen, until today. Timmy stumbled to a stop as he reached the ball, eyes widening at the sight before him. Nestled in a patch of vibrant green moss was a large, glistening egg, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly light. It was like nothing Timmy had ever seen before, and for a moment, he simply stared in awe. Then, with the unbridled curiosity of a child, he reached out and touched it. The egg shuddered beneath his fingers, emitting a low hum that resonated deep within his chest. Timmy's heart skipped a beat, but instead of fear, he felt an inexplicable warmth, a connection that he couldn't explain. He knew, somehow, that this egg was important, that it needed him. He carefully cradled the egg in his arms, surprised at how light it was despite its size. His mind raced with questions, but there was one thing he was certain of: he had to take it home. As Timmy trudged back through the woods, he heard a rustling behind him. He paused, glancing over his shoulder, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, the feeling of being watched persisted, a prickling at the back of his neck that made him quicken his pace. By the time he reached the safety of his backyard, the sun had fully risen, casting long shadows across the lawn. Timmy slipped into the house, careful not to wake his parents, and hurried up to his room. He placed the egg on his bed, its soft glow filling the small space with a gentle light. Days turned into weeks, and the egg became a constant presence in Timmy's life. He talked to it, cared for it, and in return, felt an odd sense of comfort. It was as if the egg understood him, responding to his emotions in subtle, unspoken ways. The bond between them grew stronger, deeper, until it felt as natural as breathing. One night, as Timmy lay beside the egg, he was jolted awake by a sharp crack. He bolted upright, eyes wide as the egg began to split, light pouring from the fissures that snaked across its surface. With a final shattering sound, the egg burst open, revealing a creature unlike any Timmy had ever imagined. It was massive, even as a newborn, with scales that shimmered in the dim light and eyes that gleamed with intelligence far beyond its years. The creature, no, the dread Fong, unfurled itself from the remnants of the egg, its gaze locking onto Timmy. In that moment, there was no fear, no hesitation, only understanding. The dread Fong moved closer, its breath warm against Timmy's skin. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as it made contact with the creature's snout. The dread Fong rumbled softly, a sound that reverberated through Timmy's entire being. They were bonded, connected in a way that transcended words. But as Timmy marveled at his new friend, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, something far more dangerous than the dread Fong. The unease that had followed him from the forest had only grown stronger, and as he glanced toward his window, he thought he saw a flicker of movement in the shadows. Timmy didn't know it yet, but their discovery had set events in motion that would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The bond between a boy and his beast would soon be tested in ways they could never have imagined. For now, though, Timmy leaned against the dread Fong, letting its warmth lull him back to sleep, unaware of the storm that was coming. Timmy awoke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through his bedroom window. The dread Fong, now a bit larger and more imposing, lay curled up at the foot of his bed, its steady breathing the only sound in the quiet room. Timmy smiled, the events of the previous night still fresh in his mind. His pet, his friend, was real, and it was everything he had ever dreamed of. But as Timmy climbed out of bed, his excitement was tempered by a lingering unease. The feeling that had followed him from the forest had only grown stronger, a gnawing sense that they were not alone. He glanced out the window, searching the shadows of the backyard for any sign of movement, but saw nothing. Still, the sense of being watched persisted, a cold prickling at the back of his neck. Timmy shook off the feeling and turned his attention back to the dread Fong. "Come on, buddy," he whispered, patting the creature's snout. "Let's get you something to eat." The dread Fong stirred, its eyes blinking open to reveal slitted pupils that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. It rose to its feet, towering over Timmy even in its juvenile form, but there was no malice in its gaze, only a deep, abiding trust. Timmy couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. This was his creature, and he was determined to take care of it. Together they made their way down to the kitchen, where Timmy rummaged through the fridge for anything that might satisfy the Dreadfang's hunger. He settled on a leftover roast, carefully placing it on the floor in front of the creature. The Dreadfang sniffed it cautiously before devouring it in a single gulp, letting out a contented rumble. Just as Timmy was about to head back upstairs, a sharp knock echoed through the house. He froze, heart pounding in his chest. No one ever knocked on their door this early in the morning, especially not with such urgency. Timmy's mother appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Who could that be at this hour?" she muttered, more to herself than to Timmy. Timmy swallowed hard, his mind racing. He couldn't let anyone see the Dreadfang, not yet. "I'll get it, Mom," he said quickly, hurrying to the front door. "It's probably just the mailman." But as Timmy opened the door, his breath caught in his throat. Standing on the porch were two stern-faced men in crisp uniforms, their presence radiating authority. Behind them, a sleek, black vehicle hummed quietly, its design unlike anything Timmy had ever seen. The emblem on their uniforms, a stylized star encircled by an intricate pattern, was unfamiliar but undeniably official. "Timothy Baker?" one of the men asked, his voice cool and detached. Timmy nodded, his mouth suddenly dry. "Why, yes, that's me." The man exchanged a glance with his companion before stepping forward. "We're here on behalf of the Galactic Preservation Council," he said, producing a small device from his pocket. "We have reason to believe that a creature of significant interest is in your possession. It's imperative that we speak with you immediately." Timmy's heart raced as he struggled to maintain his composure. He could feel the Dreadfang's presence just behind him, hidden from view but very much aware of the tension in the air. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than he could comprehend. "We don't want any trouble," the second man added, his tone softer but no less insistent. "But it's important that we handle this matter with care, for everyone's safety." Timmy's mind whirled, 1,000 thoughts colliding at once. He needed to protect his friend, but these men were not to be trifled with. One wrong move, and everything could go terribly wrong. He took a deep breath, his gaze steely as he met the first man's eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about," Timmy said, forcing his voice to stay calm. "But if you want to come in, you'll have to speak to my parents first." The man's eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to gauge Timmy's sincerity. After a tense moment, he nodded. "Very well. We'll speak with your parents. But know this, Timothy Baker, we will get to the bottom of this." As Timmy stepped aside to let them in, he cast a quick glance over his shoulder at the Dreadfang, who had retreated to the shadows of the hallway. They were in deep trouble, and Timmy knew it. The clock was ticking, and their secret was dangerously close to being exposed. Timmy's parents sat at the kitchen table, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. The two men from the Galactic Preservation Council stood opposite them, their demeanor unyielding, as they meticulously explained the gravity of the situation. "The creature your son found is not just any animal," the first man, who had introduced himself as Agent Lennox, stated firmly. "It's a Dreadfang, one of the most dangerous species known in the galaxy. Its presence here on Earth is not only a threat but also a matter of galactic security." Timmy's father, a quiet man by nature, rubbed his temples, trying to absorb the information. "But it's just a baby," he said, his voice laced with disbelief. "How can it be dangerous?" Agent Lennox exchanged a glance with his partner, Agent Harlow, before responding. "Dreadfangs are born with immense potential for destruction. Even as juveniles, they can wreak havoc if not properly contained. However, this one seems to have formed a bond with your son, which is unusual." Timmy stood silently by the door, his heart pounding as he listened. The Dreadfang, now hidden in the hallway shadows, was watching him, its eyes reflecting a deep, unspoken trust. He knew he had to tread carefully. One wrong word could lead to disaster. His mother, her face pale, turned to Timmy. Why didn't you tell us, sweetheart? This is serious. Timmy swallowed hard, his mind racing for a way to protect his friend. I didn't think it was dangerous, Mom, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. It's been nothing but gentle with me. I found it as an egg and I couldn't just leave it. Agent Harlow softened slightly, sensing the boy's distress. We're not here to take it away, Timmy, he said, his tone more compassionate. But we need to ensure everyone's safety, including yours. We've dealt with dread fangs before, they're unpredictable. If anything were to happen, it could put you and your family in great danger. Timmy's resolve hardened. He knew the dread fang was more than just a creature, it was his friend, his protector. He couldn't let them take it, not when it had done nothing wrong. But how could he convince them? Please, Timmy began, his voice trembling slightly. You don't understand. It's not like the others. It's different. I can feel it. Agent Lennox regarded Timmy with a measured look, clearly weighing his words. Different or not, it's still a dread fang, and that makes it a potential threat. We need to assess the situation fully. Timmy's father sighed, looking at his wife, who nodded reluctantly. Maybe we should let them take a look, he said, his voice heavy with resignation. If it's really as dangerous as they say, we need to know. Timmy's heart sank. He knew they were right, but the thought of losing the dread fang, of it being taken away to some unknown fate, filled him with dread. He had to think fast. Okay, Timmy said, his voice barely above a whisper. You can see it. But you have to promise not to hurt it. Agent Harlow nodded solemnly. We're not here to harm it, Timmy. We just need to make sure everyone is safe. With a deep breath, Timmy turned towards the hallway. Come on, buddy, he called softly. It's okay. You can come out. The dread fang emerged slowly, its massive form dwarfing the doorway as it padded into the kitchen. Timmy's parents gasped, and even the seasoned agents stiffened at the sight. The creature's eyes were calm, though, locked onto Timmy with unwavering trust. The room was thick with tension as the dread fang approached, each step deliberate, its gaze never leaving Timmy's. He placed a hand on its snout, feeling the warmth of its breath against his skin. See? Timmy said, his voice steady now. It's not dangerous. It trusts me. Agent Lennox and Agent Harlow exchanged a glance, the gravity of the situation clear in their eyes. This was no ordinary mission. The boy and the beast were connected in a way they hadn't anticipated. And with that realization, the situation had just become much more complicated. The kitchen fell into a heavy silence as the dread fang stood beside Timmy, its presence overwhelming the small space. Agent Lennox took a cautious step forward, his gaze never leaving the creature. The tension in the air was palpable, every eye in the room fixed on the massive beast. Timmy's heart pounded in his chest, but he stood his ground. The dread fang hadn't moved, its powerful muscles coiled like springs, ready to react at a moment's notice. Despite its fearsome reputation, it remained calm, its trust in Timmy unshakable. Let's not make any sudden moves, Agent Harlow said quietly, his voice carrying a note of caution. He reached for the device in his pocket, slowly raising it to scan the dread fang. The small screen flickered to life, displaying a series of complex readings that only deepened the agent's frowns. Extraordinary, Lennox muttered under his breath, glancing at the data. Its energy levels are off the charts. We've never seen anything like this. Timmy swallowed hard, sensing the gravity of their discovery. He had always known the dread fang was special, but hearing it confirmed by these officials made the situation all the more real and dangerous. He had to protect his friend, but how? As if sensing Timmy's rising anxiety, the dread fang shifted slightly, its gaze sharpening. The low rumble that emanated from deep within its chest sent a shiver down everyone's spine. It was a warning, a reminder of the power it held in reserve. Harlow exchanged a look with Lennox, who nodded grimly. Timmy, Lennox began, his voice measured. This creature is unlike any other. Its energy potential is unprecedented. If not controlled, it could pose a significant threat, not just to Earth, but to the entire galaxy. Timmy felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. But it won't hurt anyone, he insisted, his voice breaking slightly. It's not a monster. Lennox softened his tone, crouching down to meet Timmy's eyes. We believe you, Timmy. But we have to be sure. If something were to go wrong, it could be catastrophic. We need to take the Dreadfang somewhere safe, where it can be monitored and cared for. Timmy's grip on the Dreadfang tightened, his resolve hardening. No. It stays with me. It won't trust anyone else. A tense silence followed his words, the air thick with unspoken tension. The Dreadfang, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, lowered its head slightly, its eyes locking onto Lennox's. There was a challenge in its gaze, a silent promise of what would happen if anyone tried to separate it from Timmy. Lennox sighed, standing up and looking at Harlow. We don't have a choice, he said quietly. We can't take it by force. Not without risking a full-scale disaster. Timmy's mother stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. If this creature is as powerful as you say, and if Timmy is the only one who can control it, then perhaps the safest place for it is here, with him. Lennox hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. For now it stays. But we'll be monitoring the situation closely. If there's any sign of danger, we'll have to take action, immediately. Timmy nodded, relief washing over him. Thank you, he whispered, though he knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The Dreadfang's presence had changed everything. The peaceful life he once knew was gone, replaced by a reality fraught with danger and uncertainty. As the agents prepared to leave, the Dreadfang raised its head, its gaze following them to the door. The moment Lennox and Harlow stepped outside, it let out a low, protective growl, a sound that echoed through the empty hallways. Timmy knew that this was just the beginning. The Dreadfang had revealed only a fraction of its true power, and he had a feeling that soon, the entire galaxy would learn just how formidable his friend really was.